So the key is dissociation. They need to be able to disassociate their humanness from the job that they need to do. I mean, are there even things like secret societies? I'll go down the rabbit hole. For you,
Instability of truth. What do you know to be true? What do you think is true? And what if I were to tell you that you are much more easily controllable than you think you are?
So we need a leader, because the masses will run wild if we don't have some sort of system holding us together. And I love the way that this predictive history man, he's so cool. He talks about that there are 3 characteristics that you need in a good leader. I'll have to think of them all, but I know the one is lack of empathy, because you can't feel sorry for everyone. You've got a job to do and you've got to go do it, and you can't be thinking about the fact that there is a man standing next to you that needs a loaf of bread, when you've got to consider that you need to do A, B, and C to get this country and that country not to go to war with each other, which would mean thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying. You don't have time to feed this man some bread. So your empathy has to be very limited. And the second characteristic of a good leader is that they need to be able to handle a high level of stress. Of course, they have to make big decisions for people, for the majority of people. What's the third one? He needs to be unpredictable. You need a leader to be unpredictable, because then when other leaders that are against your leader or your country or your little population is trying to work out what your next move is going to be, they shouldn't be able to predict it. And your leader, the man at the top, should be the one that is not giving the game away. So the 3 characteristics of a great leader: unpredictable, lacks empathy, has a high tolerance for stress. And as far as I know, that would make him probably a sociopath, or have some sort of split personality, or almost not human. But let's watch the video and see what happens.
Now, when you have a mass society, your biggest problem is social control. How do you control the population? To do well in life, you need these 3 skills. Unpredictability. No one knows how you think. No one knows how you behave. High stress tolerance. You don't care. Lack of empathy. You're very selfish. Okay? And these are the 3 skills that leaders need in order to do well.
So the key is dissociation. They need to be able to disassociate their humanness from the job that they need to do.
The word we can use is dissociation. Your mind is part of your body. When you dissociate, what literally happens is your mind leaves your body so that you don't think that what's happening is happening to you. It's happening to someone else. It's like you become an observer in a movie. Okay? You're in the movie, but you're also watching the movie. And this is what leads to these 3 things: unpredictability, high stress tolerance, and lack of empathy.
So now we understand why a world leader cannot have empathy. He does not have time to be looking after all the small people. He needs to be able to have a portion of his brain that switches off to that so that he can look at the larger picture. Have you ever heard of game theory? Well, it's coming up in the next clip.
Okay, game theory.
So game theory is how the big guns at the top, the leaders of the world, create alliances in order to do the best job for the little population they're looking after. I wrote this in my notes, it's hilarious. These are the dark, dirty leaders, making us into puppets. If enough sociopathic leaders rule the masses together, then they create a narrative the masses must abide by. Geez, I was feeling quite cynical when I wrote that. But let's have a look and see what game theory is all about.
Discussed before how when you have a game where there are millions of different players, the secret to win this game is cheating. And you do that by forming secret alliances. To win this game, if you want to win this game, you have to be part of as many powerful secret alliances as possible. You have to be the intersection of these groups, okay?
I mean, are there even things like secret societies? What about just people at the top that are a little bit sociopathic and have no empathy, What about them just trying to help a group of people not run off with free will and do whatever they want? There has to be some sort of systematic way to make sure that everybody has a house and no one's robbing them, and that there are roads built that you can get from A to B. I mean, all of this needs some sort of systemic leadership. But I'll go down the rabbit hole for you, because it's interesting about the secret society, these dark, evil people. These secret societies have developed systems to make you loyal and obedient. The idea that elite groups that manipulate social systems has been around for centuries. In fact, I did ask ChatGPT this. I said, hey, ChatGPT, talk to me about secret societies. I could almost hear him or her, it laughing at me, because the answer was very grounded in fact and reality, not in this gut feeling that the government, the evils, the secret societies are out to get us and put us into the Handmaid's Tale. Okay, so ChatGPT says this. Now, how much of this is a conspiracy that ChatGPT is owned by these secret societies? Oh no. I don't really know what to think anymore. But anyway, it says, there is no verified evidence, this is true, that secret societies or shadow governments are coordinating global control. That is a fact. We don't have any evidence of that. What does exist are real power structures. That's true. That function like hidden systems because they operate quietly behind layers of influence, economics, and culture. Yes, that is truth. Well done, ChatGPT. So some of us might think that there are these secret societies, and who knows, maybe there is. That would be very scary. I prefer thinking that there are power structures that are there to control us, but not necessarily humans. Humans are social creatures. We want belonging, meaning, and safety. This makes us naturally loyal to systems that promise those things, even if the system itself is flawed.
These secret societies have developed systems to make you loyal, to make you obedient, to make sure that you will never betray them.
There's a clip that this lovely man, Mr. Predictive History, and his board of writings, he talks about the philosopher Immanuel Kant. This must have been an incredible human. He seems to have spoken a lot of truth in his philosophies. I didn't know much about him, but I like what has been revealed to me. Let's put it that way. Kant said, we can never know things in themselves. We can never know true reality. We can only know the things we see. We cannot differentiate between what is true and what is false.
I'm confused by this, but let me explain. So let's go back to Kant. What Kant tells us is that there's something called the noumena, which are the things in themselves. We can never know the things in themselves. We can never know true reality. We can only know the phenomena, which is the things we see. In other words, we cannot differentiate between what is true and what is false.
Every human brain can be programmed. We can all be programmed in a certain way. It's just the way our brains are made up. And that is scary.
The human brain. Every human brain can be programmed in a certain way.
Look, is there such a thing as deep state? In the next YouTube clip does examine if there is such a thing as a deep state. Who's being trained into the system?
Okay, that's a great question. So who's being trained into this system? And the answer is everyone, right? Because the people really in control are what would today call the deep state.
Now we're moving into something quite deep called learned helplessness.
And the theory is called learned helplessness.
Well, I had to ask ChatGPT for help there too. I can understand learned helplessness would be that you are taught how to be helpless. You don't feel it normally and instinctively. You just somehow are put into a corner and taught. Isn't it like that story about how you got to train someone to fish instead of giving them fish every day?
As the adage says, you give a poor man a fish and you feed him for a day. You teach him to fish. You give him,
to eat. You rather train them. So then, if you're giving them food every day, that's a type of learned helplessness, isn't it? Well, you're helpless. You can't feed yourself. Therefore, here's some fish. I won't give you the rod that I use, though. ChatGPT, here we go. Learned helplessness. What is it? A psychological condition that develops when a person repeatedly experiences situations where they have no control over the outcome. As a result, they stop trying to change or escape. They try not to escape their circumstances, even when change becomes possible. Isn't there some sort of syndrome when you're with a person that treats you really, really badly? Geez, I've heard of people that were kidnapped and eventually they kind of fell in love with their kidnapper. You become so used to the new reality that when the doors opened or the police sort of bash in the door and shoot your kidnapper, you suddenly at a loss and you mourn the loss of your kidnapper. Societies can condition people into learned helplessness, not through overt force. That's very true. It feels like it's subtle. It feels like we're getting controlled in a very subtle way, not through overt force, but through psychological, cultural, and systemic reinforcement that convinces the individuals that, well, this is just the way things are. You're a Christian, and therefore you need to not be sinful because Jesus died on the cross for you, and that's just what happened. You need to believe that. There might not be any evidence of it, but believe it, and then, you'll go to heaven, and you won't fry in hell. Repeated powerlessness. So when things are repeated over and over again, and you just become, that makes you feel powerless. So I think what I'm trying to say here is, what makes us feel powerless? If you keep voting over and over again for a government and the corruption continues, if you keep voicing your issues, your problems with a certain issue at work, and you never feel like you're getting heard and nothing ever changes. Maybe it's a salary, you want more money. No one ever listens, there's never any money, whatever it is. This makes us feel helpless. Another thing I think makes people feel very helpless is when they work really hard, day in and day out, and they never see any results. I guess the reason why we feel powerless is because no matter what we do, even in our small little way, it doesn't seem to affect the larger reality of it. No matter how many loaves of bread I hand out, no matter how many fishing rods I hand out to the poor, nothing seems to help. There just seems to be more poor people on the road every day. I guess what we need to know is when you have constant fear, it keeps you small. You're scared of being shamed or being judged, being cancelled. No dictator or secret society is needed when the population self-regulates. Know this, you are free, but only within the invisible walls you've created. You are free, but only within the invisible walls you've created. People become obedient, not because they are forced, but because they've been taught that fighting against the system is futile. I hinted at this previously when I was talking about why do we even need leadership? Why do we even need governments? We do need some sort of system. We can't just have everyone have their own free will and do whatever they want. That would be chaos. There has to be some sort of structure involved. And then what started happening, and it's going to be, I'm going to play it in the next few clips. Theorists in psychology started researching this in the early 1900s. They started thinking about how do we create a structure that manages the mass population in the best way. The best way to control the population was their thesis, I guess you could say. That was part of their research. And in those days, and probably is the same now, it was known as human, social, behavioral engineering.
I'll just say that in the middle of the 20th century, they often were part of a project that you could argue had to do with the idea of too much democracy, that if everybody had a voice and everybody was expressing their desires, there was a feeling that society wouldn't run properly and in an orderly manner. This is probably a legitimate concern to some degree, and that therefore you needed potentially theories of behavioral control, which is human engineering and social engineering and behavioral engineering. So at the root of that is this kind of just uneasiness with the public. And so the idea that people need to fulfill certain kind of roles, and they not only need to fulfill the roles by kind of coercion, but really more like they need to prefer what we want them to, they need to want to do that role.
In steps MK Ultra.
Called MK Ultra. The CIA went full-blown mad scientist. They studied these weird experiments on people. It was about breaking minds completely open in the cleanest way that they possibly could. And it was about erasing identity.
I've heard a lot about this MK Ultra. I heard that experiments were done on people trying to brainwash them, make Manchurian candidates, get people to have split personalities so that they could go and spy in certain countries in the Cold War, and they wouldn't even know that they were another human being. They were just this personality when they were in Russia or whatever, and then when they got back home, they were able to share the secrets that they'd uncovered when they were this personality in Russia, and now they are back in the US and they're able to share. So the US was able to unlock them via MK Ultra. And they used a lot of pills and drugs and shock therapies and some terrible things. But I asked ChatGPT to help me out. What more should I know about this? Just give me a brief explanation of MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a secret CIA program from the 1950s to the 1970s, whose goal was to find ways to control behavior, extract information, or influence minds. And it happened most especially in the Cold War. MK Ultra was the US government's real attempt to understanding and manipulating the human mind. They used it to blur the lines between science and ethics.
But they hide the fact of its effectiveness. And the results of MK Ultra have spread throughout society.
By the 1960s, somewhat predictable response from the government to fund MK Ultra. And this was the purpose of MK Ultra, was to see how total can control become. Could you have someone so abandon themselves that they would be actually unrecognizable?
All societies are first and foremost concerned with social control.
Chase Hughes could not have said this more poetically. He says, back in the 1950s when MK Ultra was around, they used pills. Now they use pixels.
Fast forward to today. They used to use pills. Now they use pixels. And the pharmacy they're using is in your brain. It's all your own neurochemicals and your own neurotransmitters being used against you. And the dosage of these things is measured in how many headlines and hashtags and notifications and videos that you see.
Always consider, through social media and anything you do in your day, what are you feeding your brain? And who's control of that information? Who has control of the information that you are absorbing?
So now the experiment lab isn't in some weird underground bunker. It's in your frickin' pocket.
Wow, what a powerful line. The mind control of today is in your pocket. It's in your pocket. You don't need a chip in the brain. Your phone goes everywhere with you, and it knows exactly who you're messaging, who you're talking to, what you're thinking. I mean, there's evidence when you talk about something and suddenly an advert pops up on TikTok or Facebook. The mind control is in your pocket, and it is under your control. How much you allow your mind to be manipulated by what you see and hear. So in conclusion, I think we need to understand that the most powerful form of control is not a group of elites or some secret society. It's a collective conditioning of our minds. This quote is beautiful. The most effective prison is the one whose walls you never see. Only the fear of leaving it. When individuals begin questioning, creating, and thinking freely, the illusion of control weakens. The greatest act of rebellion and liberation is to live with an examined self-awareness. If you want to break free of the system, become aware, stay present, spread love, stay human, stay grounded. I'm going to end off with a small clip from Chase Hughes' video that fascinated me. I'll also put a link in the description to it. I'm sure you've already seen it. If you haven't, then you need to subscribe to his channel. It's truly, he has a beautiful mind, and I feel he is trying to help us become more aware. So I'm going to end off with his words. Until next time, keep contemplating things. Don't take everything as surface, but at the same time, don't go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy. Sometimes things are just as they are. And remember, your fear is holding you back. Dive right into it. Life is too short. Don't stay in the prison of your own unexamined fears. Until next time.
And if you're still here, something in you already knows. And maybe you can't explain it, and maybe I can't either. I don't think that's paranoia at all. I think it's memory. I think the part of you that never signed the contract is paying attention. It's a part of you that never forgot. So none of this is about finding yourself. This is about stopping the chase and stopping the performance, stopping the endless need to be what the system rewards. You are not outrage. You are not your social profile. You're not the algorithm's predictions. The very second that you stop feeding the machine, you start starving it. And once you remember that, you can't go back. And you've probably felt it most of your life, like an itch in your gut that none of this crap makes sense. The way that we live is upside down and it feels backward and fake. If you've felt this at all, I'm here to tell you that you were right. This was never your life. It was built for you. It was all scripted and installed. Your real life is still here. It's quiet, it's patient, and it's waiting for you under the noise. And now that you've seen it, the only question left is, who are you without the script? That's the real you. Because the system is starting to crack, and you know it. And your real life is waiting.